In this edition of Fifth Gear, LPG, the half-price fuel. The best value small car around, the Ford Ka. And racing Le Mans style.
I'm driving the new Renault Vel Satis, the car from France which plans to take a pop at the Germans in the executive market. And inside, well, listen. Hello! 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 It's huge!
Without much experience in this market, Renault has taken inspiration from Cartier, Louis Vuitton and Chanel to conjure up a bit of class.
When front and rear passengers can hardly see each other, then that's luxury. And when you can adopt a cab-like lounging position in the back, then you know you're dealing with something very special indeed. But all this space, that's just the half of it. The last time I saw a Renault interior, I wanted to punch it. But this one's quality. Even the wood's tasteful.
This, the Initiale, is at £30,850, the very best Vel Satis money can buy. Sat-nav, leather, electrically adjustable front seats, sun blinds in the back and heated screen wash make it all very posh.
And Renault have also developed the world's quietest ventilation system, which means you don't have to lip read when it's on full blast.
With alloys, CD player and cruise control chucked in, that's a lot of French chic and quite a bit of weight. With its elephant dimensions, the engines and handling are going to have to be pretty special.
And the Vel Satis has certainly raised my eyebrows. The 3.5-litre engine is brisk, the automatic gearbox superb, it's got a new-fangled suspension system underneath, which means it digs into corners well, and it's got an ultra-smooth whipped cream ride quality.
So all in all, it's not a bad crack at this very snobby sector. The space is there, the luxury is there, and the prices are fairly competitive, starting at just under 21 grand.
Renault have plumbed in raised seat bases and wide door openings to allow easy access. Hang on a minute. All that space, a deep dashboard, a lofty driving position, a bonnet you can't quite see when you're sat in the front. This is a stealth MPV.
But it doesn't look like an MPV. The Vel Satis hopes to get people out of their Mercs and Beamers by being different.
There's something about the looks of the Renault Vel Satis that I've really warmed to. You might think it's ugly enough to make babies cry, but I disagree. And I'm going to prove it with a baby. A baby. What do you think about those big red lights? Yes. You like it, don't you? Vel Satis, remember that name? In 20 years' time, you'll be able to pick these up for about 200 quid. What about that big shiny badge? Look at that. What about that wing? You love it, don't you? Does that kicking mean you like it? I don't know why I'm talking in a stupid voice. I was right, not a whimper. Firm proof that the Renault Vel Satis is the car the executive sector has been waiting for.
Pay, pay, pay. That's all we motorists seem to do. Every year running a car gets more and more expensive. There's never any good news.
Yes, there is. You see, the government has handed us motorists a single crumb of comfort. They want more of us to run our cars on this, liquefied petroleum gas. No, you shout. I'm not driving around with a bomb in the boot. Well, it's going to be your loss, because what I'm about to tell you is going to save you money. Absolute bundles of it.
I've just paid 17 quid for 45 litres of gas. The same amount of unleaded would normally set me back £35. I am macheting my fuel bills in half. Let me show you how it all works. LPG is pumped from a tank in liquid form, mixed with air by injectors and then blasted into the cylinders just like petrol. Most LPG cars are bi-fuel, so they can run on petrol or gas at the flick of a switch.
Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, no, there aren't enough LPG stations. Well, you're wrong. There are 1,100 in the UK, and over the last 2 years, they have been opening up at the rate of 1 a day. But let me put it another way. I've been running this converted Jeep for, 6 months, and I have only had to switch back to petrol twice because I couldn't find a garage. So broadly, if you live in the Outer Hebrides, you might have a problem, but anywhere else, you should have no worries at all getting the stuff.
Conversions cost around 1,500 quid, and if the gas tank is sited under the floor, you won't lose any luggage space. If your car's less than 5 years old and there's a proven reduction in emissions, you'll qualify for a government grant of up to 70%.
That's right, Gordon Brown will actually give you money. What other reason do you want?
Well, you're probably a bit nervous about tales of cowboy fitters turning hatchbacks into Hindenburgs, but the government-run PowerShift organisation have a strict list of suppliers who offer warranties. Stick with that and you won't go far wrong.
Graham, you're only one of about 100 approved LPG installers, and you run this 7 Series yourself, which has been converted to gas. Why is it such a good idea to convert to LPG?
Basically, because I'm running a BMW at Ford Focus costs. It costs about £2,000 to convert this vehicle. I get 24 miles to the gallon on petrol, about 21, 22 on gas. So therefore, in pound note terms, I'm getting 40 miles to the gallon when I'm running on gas. We've converted everything from a 1.25 Fiesta to a Rolls-Royce. We've done BMWs, Mercedes. We do a lot of Ford Mondeos. There is a government grant on that, and we've got a whole batch of grants with a 60% grant from the government.
So what's the future of LPG?
Well, we've now got an LPG system for diesel vehicles. We have a Range Rover running TDI engine with diesel. It's about 35% more torque, so it accelerates much better than it did previously, and your overall fuel costs are reduced.
So you can go faster for much less?
Indeed, you can.
I must admit, my petrol Cherokee performs just as energetically on gas, but don't take my word for it. A certain Mr. Tiff Nadell has acknowledged the benefits of LPG too.
As have several local authorities, Hampshire and Yorkshire Police, and John Prescott. Even our cameraman has converted his car to LPG. Say hello. And the director is driving a dual-fuel Volvo. So we've had a completely petrol-free day, and it's been utterly delightful.
And we've been kind to nature. LPG chucks out much less nasty stuff compared to petrol and diesel.
I've been blasting these bluebells for the last 5 minutes, and not a single friend of the earth has raised so much as an eyebrow. And that's why the government have promised not to raise the duty on LPG because of its environmental benefits. You mean to say you don't believe them, but they're the government. All right, on your behalf, we spoke to the Treasury.
They told us that LPG duty is frozen in real terms until 2004, and as long as LPG stays cleaner than other fuels, the low tax will continue. But if you're still wavering, I've one more example that may persuade you.
Because LPG is the chosen fuel of the royal household, no less. They've got Rolls-Royces converted to run on gas, and Prince Philip motors around London in a gas-powered taxi. We're in good company.
But don't convert everything in sight to gas just yet. There are a few caveats. You can't take an LPG car through the Channel Tunnel. If you've got a small motor and don't rack up a big mileage, then the benefits of conversion are slim. And don't assume everything qualifies for a grant.
For me, the LPG argument is an absolute no-brainer. You save wardrobes full of cash, you help the environment, and the best bit of all is the government bungs you some wedge to do it. Look, if you run a seriously thirsty car or do a big mileage, you cannot afford not to convert to gas. LPG, the half-price fuel.
This is the new Audi A4 Cabriolet. There's seating for 4. It has a reasonably sized boot. And it comes with either a 2.4 or 3-litre V6 engine. And when the sun finally decides to come out, simply press a switch and a mere 30 seconds later, the roof will glide smoothly and silently away. This 2.4 litre does 139 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 9.7 seconds, and it is pretty decent to drive. Prices start at just under 25 grand, but you can't buy one this year because they've all been sold. And it isn't difficult to see why. This car is extremely elegant. So instead of our usual road test practice, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the view. If you're after a four-seater convertible, then BMW's 3 Series still offers the best to drive. But for style, image and looks, Audi's A4 Cabriolet is once again in a world of its own.
Like that all-important first rung on the property ladder, your first car is one of life's defining moments. And in my humble opinion, the finest first-time motor is this, the Ford Ka.
How do I know this? Because I've had 3. And not only do I reckon that they're one of the best small cars around, I've managed to run all 3 without losing, well, hardly anything. I'll tell you the secret of loose change Ka motoring later on, but for the moment, let's relax and immerse ourselves in the life and times of the Ford Ka.
Launched in October '96, the Ka met with mixed enthusiasm. It drove like a Dodgem, handled neatly but looked too much like a teapot or Darth Vader's helmet. Other gripes included no power steering and funny floppy things to lower the windows. The Ka 2 was marginally more refined, with assisted steering and windows you didn't have to crank down by hand. Better still was the Ka 3, now called the Ka Collection, with colour-coded bumpers, plush interior, and big news for a town toddler, air conditioning.
Then someone at Ford came over all deranged and decided to stuff virtually every optional extra known to man into the Ka and call it the Luxury. It's like a little Jaguar.
The tiny Ka now had a monster spec with leather trim, air-con, remote locking and boot release, alloys, heated front screen and a dozen other twiddly bits.
So how much do Ford Kas cost? Well, this is the really confusing bit, because Ford's new list for a Ka 1 is £6,300. They want £7,800 for a Ka Collection and £9,400 for a Ka Luxury.
But new Ka prices are under siege by car supermarkets and Ford dealer discounts. One Ford outfit is selling brand new Ka 1s for under £5 grand. Supermarkets are selling the Collection for $6,300, and I bought this little black Luxury brand new for $7,200. Discounted new prices should mean cheaper used values, but that's why you have to be very careful. How's this for illogicality? On the left is a 40,000-mile P-Reg advertised for $3,200. On the right is a brand new zero-mileage Ka 1 for just 1,800 quid more. Used dealers and private sellers often want too much. If the new one's £5 grand, the 97 is only worth £2 grand tops. OK, what about the bad news? Lots were used as garage courtesy and rental cars, so look for signs of poor paintwork repairs, especially on the rear panels. Front wishbone bushes can go along with steering racks. Clutches can slip, and if they're not serviced regularly, you'll hear a ticking from the camshaft. But how does the car score in the credibility department? I bet you didn't know there's an energetic owners club who definitely don't think it's a suburban mummy's runabout and mod their cars up to prove it.
Yeah, what have you done to yours?
As you can see, the interior, gone for bucket seats, gone for a sort of race stripped out kind of look.
And have you altered the engine?
I haven't touched the engine, no, purely for insurance reasons.
So it's still Group 2?
It is still Group 2.
And you look like you've spent shed loads on yours.
It looks like a lot more than it is. It's generally, most of it's original Ford parts. You know, most of it's just making it look a lot more tidy, you know, smoothing over the boot, bonnet vents, things like that.
And Mr. Nitrous, tell me about yours.
Okay, on top of the 50 brake horsepower of Nitrous, I've spent about 2,500 on bodywork. I'm on my 4th set of alloys. Just kept getting bigger. Inside, changed the stereo, changed the steering wheel, changed the seats, retrim the headlining.
Everything, really.
There's not much more I can think of. If anybody who knocks them, I would say drive one, try one. They're great.
So Uncle Henry's teapot is cheap, stylish and fun to drive, but for me it has one other very compelling advantage, and that is that they cost so little to own and run. As I said earlier, I've had 3, and what I do is I go to a car supermarket and buy a brand new Ford Ka 1 for around 5,000 quid, run it for 6 months, and then someone always comes along wanting a car for their nanny, their son, their daughter, and offers me 4,800. It would be churlish to refuse. So 6 months motoring cost me 200 quid in depreciation, and I don't have to buy a single tyre, exhaust, battery, or even have it serviced. As for MOTs, well, there's something other people do. So not only is this Britain's best small car, it's probably Britain's cheapest to run as well. The baby Ford is a bit of all right.
This week, tens of thousands of British motorsport fans will be making their annual pilgrimage to France for the greatest endurance race of them all, the Le Mans 24 Hours.
It's an event I've been fortunate enough to compete in on 14 occasions, but perhaps for the average club driver, it's something that can only be dreamed of.
However, a keen amateur can get the feel of a Le Mans-style race by getting radical.
Radical racing is part of the growing trend of putting superbike engines into sports cars. In this 2-hour endurance race, just like at Le Mans, driving duties will be shared by team drivers. Tiff and I will be racing the fastest of the radical cars, these Enduros.
Powered by a 198 horsepower Suzuki engine and a chassis that weighs just 470 kilos, these little sports cars look like mini Le Mans racers and have a top speed of nearly 150 miles an hour.
You can buy one for £30,000 and spend another 30 running it for the year. Or you can hire a works-prepared machine just for the weekend and share the seat with a friend.
The first problem Tiff and I have sharing a car, though, is our height difference. The driving position may be great for Tiff, but...
I can't even reach the pedals, and I can't see anything.
So I needed the racing equivalent of a booster seat, making the crucial driver changes even more complicated.
Right, at least I can...
Apparently they do a driver change in 20 seconds.
20 seconds? Why don't you just hoik me out with the seat? I think this change might be a bit tough.
With one-make racing, whilst all the cars may look the same, little tweaks can have a big effect. Running as low as possible is one of them, so it's always a good idea to have a quick look around.
Try to see the difference in the height. That's always the toe, it's always how many laces, you always walk around on the grid, just slide your toes underneath, you see, just check how far you can get them in. My foot disappears under ours.
So I wanted ours as low as theirs. We would get one qualifying session each. I soon found I'd underestimated just how quick these radicals are, and underestimated the opposition because, just half a second off pole, I was 14th fastest.
My turn next, so Tiff runs through what gears he's been using where. But before I try them out, we decide to have a crack at that changeover. We'd got the change down to 28 seconds, which was not as quick as some, but my practice on the track was looming, and I hoped my lap time would be somewhere on the pace. I was surprised at just how fast the thing was and how heavy the steering. After just a handful of laps, I returned to the paddock, well, a wreck, quite frankly.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm a strong person, but...
It's the downforce. You've never driven a car with downforce.
No.
Well, that's a huge difference.
Oh.
We're just not fit, Vic.
We're not fit.
Vicky and I were training for this, our first ever 2-hour endurance radical race. I took the first stint from our 14th place grid position, and things got very interesting very quickly. As the tightly bunched field headed for the first corner, a piece of loose bodywork missed me, but hit our camera. But you can't let little things like that deter you. Whatever they say about not winning races at the first corner, all that always seems to go out of the window. This was more like the start of a 10-lap sprint than an endurance race. But at least I was overtaking more than being overtaken. And the way the two ahead of me were bashing into each other, I thought that might soon be 8th. For a while, I was the meat in a 4-car sandwich, but a nifty move into 9th finally left me in a bit of fresh air.
Oh, Tiff, that was quite neat, if I say so myself.
With 5 laps to go before Tiff was due to pit, I was apprehensive about the driver change more than the race.
I've never done a pit change in my entire life. And it's all well and good, I was practicing yesterday. When it comes to the crunch, who knows what's going to happen?
Tiff stops perfectly, but whilst fuel is taken on board, we can't touch the car. However, it's not long before the scramble starts with my booster seat. Our rehearsals were worthwhile because our first change was faultless. Like Tiff, I immediately got in the thick of it.
He's blocked his line now, but he's smoking badly.
Keeping out of trouble is an important part of endurance racing, and I soon settled into a consistent pace.
Go on, mate.
However, I was beginning to have a little bit of fun. Entering the pits for Tiff to take over, we were lying 10th.
This time there was no fuel to add, but a compulsory 2-tire change instead. And again it all went like clockwork until... somehow I'd flooded the engine, and no one had told me that with motorbike engines, holding the throttle wide open is not the cure to restart it. I finally got it going again and went looking for more radicals to play with. With all the comings and goings, we'd gone from 9th to 13th and then back up to 9th again. And I was quite chuffed with a neat move to get a lap back from the eventual 3rd place finishers. But by now my arms were feeling as pumped up as Popeye's. I was more than happy to hand back to Vicky for the final run to the finish.
The last change went well and a good result was looking pretty likely. I just needed to let the front runners slide by, keep it on the black stuff, and we take 9th place with 143 laps under our belts, 4 behind the race winners. And I was extremely tired and emotional.
Come on, should we go and get a sponsor then? Do you want to do the whole series then?
I'll do the whole series on one proviso.
What's that?
You and I get down the gym.